Hey guys, Hayden Simmons here from the Portrait Guru, and within this video I'm going to share how I created this portrait drawing from this reference photograph. I start with a circle, I then draw a vertical and horizontal line through this circle. I then start to map out the structure of the face, pressing pretty lightly on the surface as I'll be drawing harder later on. This is just to show and to sketch the main features and the foundations and the structure of the portrait before moving on to the details. I'll then go on to the nose, firstly, trying to indicate where that placement is, and also I indicate the side of the cheek there. I then go on to the chin, just trying to make sure everything is lining up correctly to that photograph. So where the nose sits in relation to the mouth, where those eyes sit, is that angle correct? Keep referring back to that photograph and just making sure everything is in the right position. It's now starting to take shape now, which is great. I'm now going on to the eyes, forming those eyes and really looking at the angle of those eyes as well. Where do they sit in relation to the other facial features? I keep stressing this point as it's so important. If you want to make sure your face drawings are accurate, you've got to line them up with one another. You've got to see how the eyes sit in relation to the ears. You've got to see how the nose sits with the mouth. Keep looking at the photograph and aligning everything up with one another. This will definitely help your proportions as well. The ears and seeing where they sit on that plane. I then go on to the hair, shaping that hair and the forehead. I then do an indication of the shadows, but do let me know how you got on with your own portrait drawing. Comment me below with your thoughts, any questions that you have. I'd love to hear from you. Like and subscribe to the Portrait Guru for even more content in the future, and using rubber to erase any mistakes, and you can definitely do this within your drawing as well. If you notice any mistakes and anything which is not lining up to that photograph, just rub it out and redraw it. I'm then drawing the neckline and just seeing where those eyes sit again, drawing the irises, and then the side of the face as well, making sure that angle is correct on the page. Again, I go back into the eyebrows, and I also look at the mouth as well, the curvature of the mouth, trying to represent that mouth as a 3D object. Think about how a face is in 3D. It's not flat. It's got curvature, it's got form, and it's got structure as well. So make sure you try to depict that in your drawing. But then go back into the eyebrows, and then I also turn my drawing upside down. I look at things like the nose and any mistakes that I can highlight by turning my image upside down, and I recommend you do this as well. And by turning it upside down, it basically tricks your mind into not thinking that you're actually drawing a face. It puts everything into sort of abstract mode, and you can see all the mistakes that you have with your drawing. Things like the chin is slightly out of place there. I want to correct those eyes and the placement of those, and I'm just refining everything to that photograph. Yeah, things like the hairline, making sure that's all correct, and just keep analysing your drawing as well. How does everything line up with one another? Here I'm erasing part of that ear. I don't think the placement is correct. Just keep analysing that piece and your drawing before going on to any details or shading. I'm not doing anything like rendering at this point, it's just the structure and the layout and the foundations before moving on to those details. I then correct the mouth, just making sure that it's more in line with the photograph. And you'll be surprised when you turn your drawing the right way up, you would actually be more in line to what your photograph is showing. You'll actually have more of a accurate drawing to that photograph. And then redrawing that chin, as I thought the angle and the curvature wasn't correct, and also the neck as well. Drawing the clothing and then some more of the hair. Now I go more into the details of the ear, structuring that ear so it's more in place, and then drawing that hairline and the volume of hairline, as it's really important. Mapping out some of the shadows from that face as well. I then begin by rendering the background of the piece. As you can see from the left hand side of that photograph is actually illuminated. I wanted to bring out that face by darkening the background. So I do this first with a soft pencil. So I'm using quite a soft pencil here. And then move on to the eyebrows. The eyebrows are quite thick in this face of this woman, and they're quite dark as well. So I wanted to address this firstly within the portrait, and then move on down to the eyes and then the nose as well. Shading around that eye, you can actually see I've rotated my drawing so it's more comfortable for me to draw from. Darkening parts of that eyebrow, then adding details like the eyelashes before moving on to the iris and actually rendering that part. Keep looking at that photograph, making sure everything is correct, the angle is correct, and try to stick to say 2 or 3 or even 5 tones at a time. Rendering around the eye, also don't forget to underneath the eyelashes. Adding some more details here, like some wrinkles underneath that eye, just to make it a bit more realistic. But do let me know how you got on with your own portrait drawing. Comment me below with your thoughts, any questions that you have, I'd love to hear from you. Like and subscribe to the Portrait Guru for even more content in the future. But do let me know how you got on with your own portrait drawing. Comment me below with your thoughts, any questions that you have, I'd love to hear from you. Like and subscribe to the Portrait Guru for even more content in the future. Actually adding some tone to the side of the face. It's not completely white to the left hand side of that face. Added some tone here, not pressing too hard. Also wanted to have some contrast from that left hand side of the face to the bridge of the nose, and to illuminate and to make some contrast with that. I then move on to the right hand eye, adding some shadows to the corner structure of the right hand eye. I then begin to draw some details and some shadows to the base of that nose, adding some rendering and just some basic shadows. So things like the nostrils, making them quite dark. As you can see, the darkness of the nostrils are pretty much the same darkness as the irises, the eyelashes, the hair, and also the eyebrows. So make sure this darkness is the same in tone. Making sure I go around that structure, making sure that it's representing a 3D nature. Then draw some further shadows to the background, and then the side of the mouth. You can see I flick in between doing things like the nose to the eyebrows, and now I'm doing the mouth. I seem to do this a lot within my work, as I seem to just get bored a little bit by just doing one element at a time. I try and flick between each element. It seems to work for me, but if it doesn't work for you, you can do one facial feature at a time. And then draw some more details to that mouth. So if you look at the photograph, there's a dark area underneath that lip. There's a dark area within the mouth itself, and you can see some of her teeth within there as well. The darkest areas are to the left and to the right of that mouth, and just make sure the bottom lip has that curvature and the top lip also has some shading as well. So the darkest areas I'm drawing now around the bottom of that lip. And you can see the portrait's really coming to life now. We've got the eyes in place, the nose is looking good, and some more details that side of that mouth. And then add some darkness to the inside of the mouth, then added some more finer details around the top lip before adding some more darkness to the bottom of that lip there. And you can see that the side of the mouth actually goes into the shadow part of the side of that face. And then move on to the right hand eyebrow. You can see this is pretty dark within the photograph, and I want to replicate this within the drawing, as this is quite a strong feature within this portrait. So I wanted to also show that within my drawing as well. And then move up onto the hair, really trying to be expressive and just show the volume of that hair. You can see from the center parting forms to the left, so I wanted to show that within my marks. You can be quite expressive with drawing hairlines and hair in general. If you don't want to follow the photograph, you don't have to do that. You can make it your own. As you can see, I'm making some more hairlines and some more details which are not shown in the photograph. If you wanted to make your drawing more expressive, or you wanted to actually change some of the facial features, you can definitely do that, and I really actually encourage that as well. This is art, you can make it your own, and then you can use some of your artistic license to do whatever you want. You don't have to literally copy the photograph, but if you wanted to copy the photograph, that's absolutely fine. How closely you want your drawing to be in line with the photograph. I then add some shadows to the side of the face. As you can see, you've got some shadows on the right hand side underneath that chin. You've got some dark areas on the neck and also the side of the forehead. So I'm adding this in as well. The lightest parts of that face come from the left side of the forehead, the bridge of the nose, the cheek, and also below the nose and also below the mouth in areas. I then render the right hand side of that eye, adding the upper eyelid and also the lower eyelid. This is quite dark, and also it matches the left hand eye. Adding some shadows underneath that eyelid and also the sides of that eye as well. Remember, the socket of the eye is inwards to the eyebrows. The eyebrows actually stick out from the face, so making sure your strokes go around that eye socket. As you can see here, I'm trying to curve that eye going around that socket. Then pressing quite lightly to shade the side of that face and to make a really nice shape going from the eye, going around the cheek to the corner of that mouth. You want your drawings to have big shapes within them. I then render the hair going around the ears, pressing quite hard on the surface at this point. I then render around the ear, making sure the darkness correlates to the rest of their hair. So the darkness is pretty much in that hairline and that hair in general, the eyes, the eyebrows and the mouth. And then rendering the inside of that ear as well, looking at all those details. So the darkness comes from within the ear itself, around the lobes, and also the earring as well. So I'm just drawing out all those nice details there, bringing out the lightness, bringing in the darkness, and having some nice contrasts within the details of that ear. I switch between using a hard and also a soft pencil. I use a soft pencil for those dark areas, so within that ear itself, and then a hard pencil for those lighter shading areas, so around the lower part of that ear. I then start to draw out the earring, looking at all those nice details. I'm actually concentrating here on the negative space within that earring. So look at that nice shape in between the inside of that earring. Trying to draw out that shape and then going around that ear as well, as there's some hair below that ear. Looking at the darkness and the light coming from that earring, and just trying to describe the clothing underneath. It's quite dark within that section of the portrait, the neck, so I'm trying to make it quite dark in tone. I then go to the chin, drawing out more of a hard line here and then rendering around that chin as well. You can see some reflected light coming from that jawline, so I'm trying to describe it within my rendering. Again, I'm using a hard pencil here, as I don't want it to be too dark on the page. As I've used the eraser previously on that jawline, it's made a kind of grainy sort of feel with that rendering just above that jawline. I'm not too happy with it within the final drawing, but it sort of works, as it brings too much attention to this part, but hopefully yours doesn't come out this way. I try to bring out more darkness within that background and just have some contrast between the portrait and also the background. Adding some more darkness to the neck, and then adding some details to the fabric itself and trying to describe how that fabric folds around the form and the material it encompasses. And then switch back to the soft pencil and adding some more darker tones to that neck. Always looking at the big shapes within the photograph. As you can see, there's a nice big shape of shadow coming from the eyes to the mouth to the chin. There's also a little bit of light coming from the side of that face underneath the mouth itself. So I'm trying to describe this within my drawing. I'm being pretty loose here with the rendering of the hair, adding some more details to this part, some more individual hairs, then adding just generally some more darker tones throughout. You can see the portrait is really coming to life now. It's pretty much in the closing stages. I'm just adding some extra details to the piece just to bring out all those nice facial features. Don't be afraid to make some of your darker tones darker. You can make your background darker if you wanted to really bring out that portrait, and you can actually render some of the background to the right of that portrait as well. It's up to you, completely up to you. In my drawing, I think I've gone too hard underneath that mouth there. I'm not a big fan of that, as it just brings too much attention to it, and I think it's a bit lost with what exactly that is showing. I wouldn't say to replicate this within your drawing. As you can see, I'm playing around with it too much, as I'm just not happy with this part here. It's very annoying, this part. It's just not working out. Sometimes with a drawing, you just don't like certain parts, and this part was definitely one of those areas. You can see I'm erasing it. I'm just not sure exactly what to do here. It's too dark, and there's just too much attention going on here. Unfortunately, as you start to erase, it actually can affect the drawing strokes after you've done this. It makes it a bit grainy, as you can see, but just trying to make it a little bit lighter in its look and feel. But I'm not having the best of luck here, especially as the rest of the portrait is in a good state here, and again it's just looking too dark. As you can see, I'm drawing a lot of attention to that chin, just not very happy with it, but the rest of the portrait has gone pretty well. Going into the closer stages of this portrait, but do let me know how you got on with your own portrait drawing. Comment me below with your thoughts, any questions that you have. I'd love to hear from you. Like and subscribe to the Portrait Guru for even more content in the future. And here's the final artwork. Cheers guys, and see you on the next video.